The woman shoved open the lid of her mother's coffin at the funeral, only to find that it was completely empty inside. While she stood there confused, her supposedly dead mother suddenly walked out from the side. Only then did the woman realize that this whole funeral was just a setup by her mother to raise money for her adopted son. When the truth came out, the woman felt utterly hopeless. What she didn't know was, her mother had done all this to ensure the adopted son would be punished. 3 years ago, the mother was seriously ill and hospitalized. But after falling ill, she seemed like a completely different person. She used all the money meant for her surgery to buy a car for her adopted son. When the woman found out, she immediately questioned her mother, telling her she might not live long without surgery. And now that the money was gone, what was she supposed to do? But her mother's response was chilling. She told the woman and her husband to keep working and making money for her. The son-in-law finally snapped. He said the woman had quit her job to care for her mother, personally attending to her every need, while the adopted son never once visited the hospital. All he ever did was ask for money. The mother fell silent for a moment. A flicker of emotion crossed her eyes as she looked at her daughter. But the next second, her face turned cold again. She said all of this was the daughter's duty. She even claimed that since it was her money, she had every right to give it to whomever she wanted. Faced with her mother's indifference, the woman wasn't angry. She was just more worried about her mother's condition, because the doctor had already warned that delaying any longer could cost her life. But her mother's words cut like a knife. She told her daughter to sell her body to raise the money. The woman was filled with despair. She couldn't understand how the mother who once loved her could become so heartless. The daughter practically begged her to go get the money back, but the son-in-law pulled out his phone, showing that the adopted son had already bought a luxury car. The money was probably long gone, yet the mother wasn't surprised at all. And when the son-in-law confronted her, she calmly said the adopted son had made the right choice. At that moment, the woman couldn't take it anymore. She shouted that her mother had gone mad. The mother replied that the inheritance would go to the adopted son eventually anyway, so what difference did it make if she gave it to him now? After that, she refused any further treatment and insisted on going home. Once back home, she began rummaging through the house for the property deed. The woman thought she had finally come to her senses, that she was going to sell the house to pay for surgery, and she even discussed with her husband how to cover the remaining cost. But to her shock, her mother turned around and said she wanted to transfer the house to the adopted son, and once the house was his, the daughter's family would have to move out. Upon hearing this, the daughter thought her mother had truly gone insane. After all, she had sold her own new home to help cover the surgery costs, but now her mother was ignoring her sacrifices and giving the house to the adopted son. Even the son-in-law was shaking with rage. He yelled that the mother didn't deserve to be called a human. Completely heartbroken, the woman left the house with her husband. What she didn't know was, after they left, her mother broke down in tears. 3 years passed in a flash, and the next time they met was at her mother's funeral. The woman had already expected that the adopted son wouldn't handle the funeral properly, so she made all the arrangements herself in advance. But then the adopted son said that since it was their mother's funeral, he had to show some responsibility in front of friends and family. The woman looked puzzled. Before she could ask further, the adopted son began giving a speech to the guests, saying he had a tough life and just wanted to give their mother a proper farewell. Then he pulled out a bag and asked everyone for funeral contributions. Though the